Hello, and welcome to the last section of this course, which is called Microsoft Graph API. During the course of this section, we'll take a look at what is Microsoft Graph API and give an overview and some examples of that. We will discuss the ways developers can use to connect to Graph API. And lastly, we will take you through a short demonstration on how this endpoint can be utilized. In this video, we will going to take a look at what is Microsoft Graph API. We will discuss the proposed development stack, and we'll briefly touch on the authentication mechanism against the Microsoft Graph API. Microsoft Graph API, previously known as Unified API, can be described as the easiest way to access a multitude of different APIs from different Microsoft Office 365 product offerings through one consistent endpoint. It consolidates those APIs from multiple products like contacts or groups, calendar, Sharepoint, planner, and a number of other things. In addition to being just an API endpoint, it also provides webhooks subscription functionality with limited support in limited areas. So this can be viewed as a powerful one-way stop for accessing and managing information about your enterprise or single users in the Office 365 space and even beyond. Let us take a look at the development stack. There is a virtually limitless number of development platforms upon which you can develop to get access to the Microsoft Graph API. Really, you are only limited by your own use cases. Valid platforms can be Universal Windows applications, iOS or Android apps, .NET Framework, JavaScript, Ruby, etc. It can be hosted on a multiple platforms, for example IIS or LAMP and Microsoft Azure. You are free to use any IDE you seem fit for your development stack. Also, an OpenID Connect and OAuth version 2.0 and widely used authentication protocols are adopted as a protocol of choice here. And of course, at the data layer, you are exploring limitless possibilities of getting data from different Office 365 products. Let us briefly touch on different authentication scenarios that developers must adopt in order to access the Microsoft Graph API endpoint. And all of those are authentication code grant flow, client credentials grant flow, and implicit grant flow. They differ in a way authentication is handled, but ultimately the goal of all three of those is to obtain an access token, which you can then use with your requests to the API. A number of authentication libraries are available for the developers, depending on the stack from which they are coming from. So there is a library for JavaScript, and also there is a library for .NET, which we will explore in the later videos. Also, Microsoft Team offers a Microsoft Graph API Explorer. It is an online tool in which you can test your REST queries to the Graph API endpoint and see the JSON results which you would get. As a short demo, let us take a look at the Graph API Explorer and see what we can come up with in terms of queries. So here we are in the Graph API Explorer page. We're getting dummy information because we are not yet signed in. And we can construct different queries, for example, my photo, and we'll get something, dummy information. Everybody who is not signed in will be getting the same information from Microsoft. And now let us sign in with our Microsoft account. At this point we see the account which is signed in here. Now we can try to run the same query again. And this time the information will be about our currently logged in user. We can try getting the photo, and there will be failure status 404 because there is no photo associated with this user account. A user has not uploaded a photo, simple as that. We can try to get my manager as well. And there is code 404 because there is no manager there. We can get my mail, and this will query the Office 365 Outlook for the recent messages of this currently logged in account, which is quite handy. Let us explore the Sharepoint endpoints, and they're quite limited. We only get an endpoint to retrieve information about a certain Sharepoint website and document libraries, which are associated with either that site or the current user. We can start typing here, and you can see that this site also offers a helpful autocomplete on the API documentation, which is quite handy. So this is the endpoint to access Sharepoint information, and in here I can provide a host name of my Sharepoint tenant. Let's run this query, and it will return top-level information about this site. We can go further and now type drives, and this will retrieve all of the document libraries in that site. You can see it took some time. And here is an array of JSON objects, each containing information about a certain list or document library. And from here, really, we can use the standard REST API filtering or selection rules to alter our request. For example, we can select a styles library to only be shown. So this translated into a query which is filter name equals style library. As you can see, we only have one result, which returns the style library object. And this will be it for our short demo in this video.